Hey everyone, I'm so excited that you're joining us for What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do, week 2. It's a lot. So like I mentioned on Saturday, how do we deal with those situations that leave us speechless? You know, the ones where you struggle to find a word or even an emoji to express what's going on? Well, Joseph had a lot of those situations. Joseph, like we said last week, is one of the most famous people in the Old Testament. Joseph had some family drama we talked about last week, drama that he definitely played a part in creating. He was Dad's favorite, and therefore he was given special treatment compared to his brothers. And on top of that, he had a dream, and his brothers and even his parents bowed down to him out of respect and honor. And because Joseph had a hard time picking up social cues, he shared that dream with his family. And you can imagine how well that went over. His brothers were not okay with him being Dad's favorite, and his brothers were not okay with him sharing dreams of him ruling over them one day. So how did they respond? Well, let's check this out. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. That just went from 0 to 100 really quick, but it continues. Here comes that dreamer, they said to each other. Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. And then we'll see what comes of his dreams. Now, despite his anger towards Joseph, one of his brothers actually had a conscience in that moment. When Reuben heard this, we're talking about Reuben, when Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. Let's not take his life, he said. Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him. Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. Thank goodness for Reuben. He convinced his brothers to throw Joseph into a well instead of going homicidal on him. He even planned on coming back later and rescuing Joseph. The brothers, they listened to Reuben, and when Joseph approached, they ripped off the special coat his father gave him and threw him in a well. Now, if Joseph had a phone, this is when he would have texted his best friend and said, when your brothers tear up your jacket and throw you in a well, insert whatever shocked emoji here. But they still weren't done with him. They noticed a caravan that was approaching with a bunch of traders, and Judah, another one of Joseph's brothers, suggests that they sell Joseph to these traders. I mean, after all, selling Joseph to a group of people who would probably make him a slave is better than murdering him, right? So that's exactly what they do. And then they dip Joseph's coat in blood, blood of a wild animal, and take it to his father and tell him that Joseph was attacked by a wild animal. Crazy cover story, right? This is what it says. They took the ornate robe back to their father and said, we found this. Examine it to see whether it's your son's robe. That last line tells us everything we need to know about the situation. The brothers obviously knew the coat belonged to Joseph. They brought it to him to let their dad know that they had noticed the way that he favored Joseph, that they were mad about it. They didn't call it Joseph's coat. They didn't call it their brother's robe. They said your son's robe. What a bunch of jealous jerks, right? However, I kind of feel how the brothers felt. My little sister was the baby of the family, and a lot of the times I felt was the favorite of the family. And I thought she was being favored over me. There were even times when she got in trouble, I said, you got in trouble. Now maybe I can be the favorite for a little bit, the center of attention. What a jealous jerk, right? I'm being a bit lighthearted, but there was nothing lighthearted about Joseph's situation. We simply can't imagine the fear, the despair, the uncertainty, the anger, and just the way that he felt being betrayed by his own flesh and blood, sold into very real slavery by the brothers that he grew up with. The message being sent was loud and clear. We're all better off without you. I mean, what would you even do? How do you get yourself unsold from slavery? This is clearly a what to do when you don't know what to do moment. Now, our stories are different than Joseph's, but we will all experience pain of some kind. We all have scary, painful, or even dangerous moments that catch us off guard. We'll all have moments when life doesn't seem to make sense, and we don't have words to process what's happening. Unfortunately for Joseph, he had a lot more shocking moments coming up in his future. And we'll look at some of those over the next few weeks. But I want to highlight 5 powerful words that show up in the historical account of Joseph's life. And while they didn't keep him from getting thrown into a pit and they didn't keep him from getting sold, these 5 words literally made all the difference and helped Joseph maybe more than anything else. The Lord was with Joseph. Joseph didn't have a lot going for him in that pit, and probably had a lot less going for him afterwards. But when Joseph was in despair and wondering how life would turn out, he relied on a single truth. God was with him. Now, this truth didn't change the reality of Joseph's situation, but it was better than being alone. This truth didn't mean that Joseph could see where the story was going, but he could know that he wasn't entirely dependent on himself to get out of the situation. And that truth didn't mean that Joseph could easily deal with the things that were happening to him. It didn't mean that he had a reason or even an explanation for the pain in his life. But he didn't have to figure out all of these things by himself. And the same is true for you. When there's nothing you can do, God is with you. When life hands you shocking news and you don't know what to do, God is with you. Now, truthfully, we hear that all the time. So often, those words seem to just lose their meaning, and we don't really feel them the way that we're supposed to. But I think that it's not just some abstract way. He is literally present near you, next to you when you feel alone. And when you and I truly understand and embrace this truth, it changes things. Our circumstances may not change. I mean, after all, Joseph wasn't immediately returned to his family, but it changes our perspective on our situation. And maybe more than anything, it gives us hope that we can keep going even when it feels like we can. Knowing that God is with us may not change our circumstances, but it might change us. It might give us enough hope to keep going, even in the midst of our hopeless situation. Now, it's easy to give into the hurt that we've experienced. It's easy to let our fear overwhelm us or our anger just consume us. We have a lot of reasons to let difficult and sometimes unfair situations get the last word. But when we know that God is with us, the uncertainty of life doesn't get the last word. God does. But what does that look like for us? There are no formulas or easy answers for getting through hard times. But here are some things that we can do in the meantime. 1, be real. Feel your feelings. Not everyone will experience incredible luck in their life, but everyone will go through tough times and through pain. And all throughout the Bible, people went through difficulties. And there are tons of accounts of them being real and honest with God about their struggles. There are no cliches to make hard times go away. That rhymed. And our job isn't just to suck it up and act like everything's okay. If we believe that God is with us, then we should know that God is more than okay with our honest questions and doubts and with our fears. Number 2, remind yourself and each other that God is with you. Here's a spoiler alert. Things eventually did work out for Joseph. But we know that because we can read the whole story in the Bible. But when Joseph was in it, turns out he didn't know what was going to happen. There were no spoiler alerts for him. All he could do is face another day wondering how things were going to turn out. But he held on to one thing, that God was with him. In the moments where life is the toughest, that's the reminder that God is with us, and it is the most important. God is with you, and your story is not over yet. Thanks for joining us. We're so excited to continue in this series. We're going to be dropping some small group and community group content later in the week, so be on the lookout for that. Make sure you're subscribed, the bells, all the stuff, and we'll see you next week.